Nate, man, thanks for reaching out. I'm interested to hear a little bit about your mom today. You mentioned specifically just having the opportunity to share a little bit, and that's what we'll hang out and do, if that's cool.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Thanks for being open for that.
Absolutely. I love chatting about it.
So, tell me about your mom.
So, oh my gosh, that's a very open-ended question.
I know. We'll just start wild. We'll
start wild, and absolutely. So, my mom, Susan Jane Shepard of Bremen, Indiana. Oh yeah, so
Bremen.
Official, right?
Shout out Bremen.
I'm not a Bremen guy, so we grew up in a small town in northern Indiana. I grew up, and I went to Triton, which is Bremen's. I call them rivals. They wouldn't say we were rivals, but and my mom grew up on a farm. Oh, my grandma Eleanor, my mom, she was her only daughter, so super tight, and she was just the gentlest at times, gentle and like kind-hearted, like hilarious person. Sometimes to a fault, where it's like, oh, can you just be serious this one time? But like, and then sometimes it was like very much needed. Yeah. And she, for a small town woman, Bremen has, a couple thousand people. Very adventurous. So she unfortunately battled medical problems her entire life. Had open heart surgery as a baby, kidney transplant in her 30s, and couldn't have kids. So like this small town woman from northern Indiana, her and my dad, flew across the world to Russia and adopted me as a baby. And
from Bremen, Indiana.
From Bremen, Indiana to Rostov-on-Don, Russia.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And she said it was the scariest, but also like best. And 3 weeks in a foreign country where you don't speak the language.
Sure.
In 1997.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So just post-Soviet Union. Like,
sure.
She said it was terrifying, but it was like we wanted a kid and international adoption was the answer. And they got me back to the States on New Year's Eve, 97. And she then became an inspiration in my life, but was one of the greatest moms ever.
Sure.
I'm sure everyone says that, right?
Well, it's part of the gig, I think.
Yeah.
Being a parent.
Yeah.
You said international adoption.
Yeah.
What was, I'm thinking about, you mentioned that she was gentle and some of the things that you said about her, like what was it about international adoption that made it?
I honestly don't know what like drove her to do international adoption versus like somewhere here in the States.
Sure.
Maybe it was ease or like the first number in the phone book that called and said, "Do you want to adopt a kid from Russia?"
Gotcha.
Like, when you open that up and whatever the first adoption agency was, you call that.
Yeah.
So they worked with a company here in Indy and got hooked up and went over there and brought me back, and I'm very thankful. And then like the thing was we looked just alike. Like she had like brown hair, brown eyes. Yeah. Everyone would be like, "Oh, your son like looks just like you." And I was one of the kids where I always knew I was adopted. So she would go off crazy with like a scrapbook and like all this stuff that like mementos of Russia. And like I knew from an early age that I was adopted. And she would like go big for show and tell. I would win every show and tell. I don't know. Show and tells aren't really a contest, but I would win.
She brought Russia into your life.
Yes, absolutely.
That's incredible.
And never felt insecure about the fact that like she did not give birth to me. Which was like, which I didn't at the time. I'm a kid at the time, you know, like I don't think about that. But it's like, it was something that I look back on now and I'm like, that'd be hard, like not giving birth to a son, but like still like making that a part of my life. And I always knew that I was adopted, but like I knew who my mom was, and it was not the woman who gave birth to me. It was the woman who raised me.
Right.
And so like, I would say mom was, I wouldn't say she wasn't college educated. She never went to college. She had repeated the third grade. Like on paper, like not a scholar, right?
Okay.
But now as I like look back and think about my life, like there were so many lessons that are so practical and like just made sense. That are like simple when you think about them, but in the moment you're like, you don't.
Yeah.
Right. So things about like just being comfortable in your skin. Right. And
she taught you that.
Generous. I like now in the moment.
Now you realize it.
Now I realize that's
yeah.
like a lesson she left me with of just like, hey, like I might not have given birth to you, but I'm going to like love you like my own. I'm going to be your mom. And now I look back and I was like, yeah, she was like, that's she's mom.
Sure. Can you talk a little bit about, as you grew up, like the relationship with her as you got into high school and started to become a man?
Oh gosh. This is going to be, I was a terrible child.
Okay.
I was a terrible teenager. I thought I knew more than everyone, especially her, right? And lo and behold, like, again, I say, like, she was not college educated and, like, was very wise in a lot of things, but, like, she was, like, stopped helping me with my homework at, like, 6th grade, you know? And, like, that's kind of where we kept it. And, like, me being a terrible kid, like, looking back, I like want to slap myself, you know? Like I got reprimanded, you know, and like I learned, but it's like, but it was always like, she would bring me back and like try to root in kindness, which I like have hopefully adopted a lot of, especially since her passing. Like I try to embody that in a lot of places, but we were not friends and we were like, I would almost say enemies, like all the way up until my parents got divorced when I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
And I lived with my mom and my 90-year-old grandma at the time.
The three of you?
The three of us.
That's
me,
awesome.
Mom, grandma.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time playing euchre.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it was that moment when it's like, it's just us three. And I kind of like started to grow up a little bit. Just a little, like enough where I was like, dang, I should be more respectful.
Sure.
And I started to realize, like, she taught me the value of hard work, for sure. Like, she worked at a job in a factory making $7.25 an hour as a 45-year-old woman and would get up every morning and get there at 6 a.m. and leave at, 3, 4 and would bring home a paycheck in the hundreds every couple weeks, like every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. I could do the math on that. And at the time, I took it for granted. And at the time, I was like, oh, she's just going to work, like whatever. And like looking back, I did not nearly say thank you enough for my, at the time it was cool, like the American Eagle jeans and the Hollister shirts and the stuff that she would buy me.
Yeah.
Like I did not say thank you. And even with that, like when I went to college, I went to a university that I definitely could not afford, like out of pocket at all. And she once a semester would give me like $1,000 to like help pay for school.
Wow.
And it's like, at the time I'm like, oh, in my back of my head, I'm like, oh, $1,000, like what's that going to do?
Right,
And like, now I'm looking like, dude, that's like,
that was big.
That's a big thing. And that's being generous and being selfless with your money.
Sure.
At a time like when you didn't have a lot of means, but like we had a lot of fun. And I think that over my junior year of high school, senior year of high school, and then freshman and sophomore year of college, I did start to grow and like, I kind of like realized that like, hey, we have to have each other's backs. Like we're a small little wolf pack here.
Sure.
Like, and I would like lean into that more, but I definitely did not appreciate it nearly. Like looking back, hindsight's always 20/20.
Sure.
Could have appreciated it way more. But it's like lessons that I look back on now of like, that's just being selfless. Like she was very religious, like a devout Catholic, and like lessons of just generosity, giving well beyond your means, well beyond to like support me. And at the time, oh my gosh, she was my biggest fan. I'd played a lot of sports in high school. She would bring a cowbell and she would cheer and go crazy and like was the loudest person. She was deaf. So she had hearing aids. Okay. Like she was legally deaf, not actually. So like, which is like a whole nother story of like when she would take her hearing aids out, all the things that I could do and how easy I could get out of the house. I was like,
classic teenage stuff.
I would come home for curfew and I would be out the door in 20 minutes after she went to bed, like easy. And, but like she was so loud and I'm really loud now. And I always say it's like, well, because my mom was deaf, I had to scream at her, but she had hearing aids, but I still do that anyway. And so she'd show up and was the ultimate cheerleader. Like she would talk to all her friends like, oh my gosh, did you see Nate did this, Nate did that? Like, and at the moment I was like, oh my gosh, like stop it. Like you're embarrassing me. Like it's not that cool. Like it's 1A high school football, Mom, like chill out, like whatever. And looking back, I'm like, now as I coach wrestling, I'm like, I'm the ultimate cheerleader. Like I'll go crazy for these guys.
So
I'll go crazy for my
you took
friends.
a lot of that from
And I think
from her.
I'm like connecting these dots.
Yeah.
I'm literally connecting these dots like right here. I've never thought of that before, but I'm like, I love cheering people on.
Sure.
And looking back, it's like in the moment, another thing I did not appreciate nearly enough. I was like, oh my gosh, like you're embarrassing me. But now I'm like, dude, having that cheerleader all the time, like your number one fan, it's like, that was powerful.
Sure.
And it's like made me definitely like outkick my coverage a lot of times, like whether it was schoolwork or like trying to create big things and like do big things. It was like she believed all the time.
Yeah.
And even though like her entire life battled medical issues, was still an optimist. Most of the, like 95% of the time. Like I think kind of, you know, her story was she had these old medical problems. My freshman year of high school, got diagnosed with breast cancer and beat that. Like went through all the treatment, was like rang the bell, was in remission. And then after that, that was when my parents split up. And then my fall of my sophomore year, I got a call while I was down at school that she was like, hey, my cancer's back and it spread to my lungs. So she had lung cancer. And she was like, it's pretty early, like we can beat this, like yada yada.
Super
like,
optimistic, right? Like out the gate.
She was like, obviously she's terrified, but she didn't let me. And I like remember being in the library at school and like bawling, like lung cancer is no joke. And she never smoked. She was like, I think I saw her drink like one alcoholic beverage like one time in my life, like never smoked, just like was unfortunate.
Sure.
Like one of those things where it's like her entire life like tried to stay positive, like was an upbeat person, but just like, unfortunately, I couldn't catch a break, but still found a way to be like optimistic of like, this is the plan, like this is what we're gonna do, and like I am a relentless optimist, especially like after my like junior or senior year of high school, I like just love positivity, and like positivity is powerful, and it can get you through a lot of things, and stems 100% from her.
It got her through a lot.
Yeah, it did, and even when it's like hard times. Like, it doesn't mean like, hey, I'm going to beat this, but it's like finding the little wins. Like, I ate dinner and didn't throw up tonight. Like, let's go. Chemotherapy is it's a tough one, right? It's like little things like that. Like, I got to do this. I got out and find these little wins, and we would celebrate them. We would like, oh my gosh, I remember like our big thing was like we would get takeout food on Fridays, and it would be like, that's like our, like, oh, we made it through another week. Another treatment, like, we made it through another week of this cancer battle, like let's freaking go. We got pizza and would hang out and play cards and
weekly celebration.
And it was like celebrating those little wins along, especially like along a journey of like medical problems. Like you gotta, it's not all going to be cured in a day, but you got to celebrate those wins. And I got that directly from her.
You do that now?
Oh, dude, I celebrate anything and everything.
I
am just pumped about being pumped. I woke up this morning and I was pumped up. And I like, and I try to radiate that because she radiated that in my life so much. It was like, and on times, what I'm finding out now is like on times when she ended up getting diagnosed with brain cancer that was terminal. And like there were days 100% where she woke up and was defeated. And it was on those days where I had to be the optimist. And there were days when I was like, my problems of like schoolwork or whatever, and she would be the optimist. And it was like a tag team duo.
So you knew that there were roles that you were playing for each other in that moment, but knew enough that you could.
I didn't know it.
In
the moment, I wasn't like. In the moment, I was like, we need to get through this because like we can't sit here and feel sorry. We weren't on the train of feeling sorry for ourselves. Like God gave us this hand, and we're gonna like play the game with what we got. And it was like, I don't know, like subconsciously. It was just like when she was feeling down, I had to be up. When I was feeling down, she had to be up. And it was like, that was our duo. And that was our dynamic. And even when things got like bad and towards the end of her life, like we still found ways to celebrate and ways to laugh. Like laughter is a precious medicine. Absolutely. Especially in the hard times. Like if you can, like cancer is, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish brain cancer on anyone. And watching one of my best friends like slowly deteriorate, like being able to like 2 weeks before she passed away, like find a joke to laugh about, like something in life as it's drawing short to be able to like still find a little comedic relief, like was powerful. Like, and there's no science. I don't have any science. I'm not a medical background, but like could have been the difference like between a couple days, a couple hours extra, just like having joy in your life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Sounds like she brought a lot of that to you, of course.
Hilarious. She was hilarious.
You've said a couple of things that sound like maybe a little bit of regret that I think we all have when we have something that we don't have. We had something, right? And you look back on all the things that you could have done, should have done, and would have done differently. You talked about appreciation, right? I would have appreciated. I would have said thank you, things like that. But it also sounds like there isn't really a stopping point for being able to do that. Just because Susan doesn't get a chance to hear the appreciation, it still sounds like you have learned to appreciate it and communicate it, and that changes a lot in the way you go about your life.
Death is the ultimate teacher, right? I have learned to appreciate what she left, the lessons she shared, the stories, the memories, all of the amazing and terrible times. Like there was bad times. Like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we were the perfect family. We were not. But what I've learned is to appreciate those moments while I'm there, like around other people too. You know, like I was not a grateful freshman in college. Absolutely not. I was like, dude, I'm going to college. Like, let's go crazy, you know? And after she passed away my sophomore year, I like took a moment and was just like, man, I'm really lucky. Like I don't have any medical problems. I'm not battling cancer. I'm like, the biggest problem is like, are people going to show up to our party on Saturday night? You know, like that was the issue. And I'm like, I'm freaking really grateful. And that is probably like the biggest lesson that her passing has like taught me is like, I'm very fortunate.
Sure.
And I was not that way before. And it's like, as we go forward, I like can now draw back to these lessons that she taught me. Like, it wasn't like she was sitting down and telling me to be grateful. It's like I'm thinking through memories and I'm thinking through like stories and just like interactions that we had. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like there was her being generous. There was her being grateful. There was her like being a good person. And it's like, I strive to be that now. And I strive to share that with other people too. I think that's my biggest, like on this like grief journey that people go on. Like at first, like battling with the fact that no one wants to, like, people are scared to talk to you. People are scared to talk about the person because they don't know if I'm going to break down and cry. They don't know if I'm going to get enraged with them. And
you're talking about people that that you knew
my friends.
While your mom was alive and your mom passes and you see those people again and they don't know
like people that used to ask me, how's your mom when she was alive? Like steer clear of it like the plague now that she's passed. And I was like very resentful. I was like, what the hell? Like, does no one want to talk about, like, why does no one care? I remember being in that mindset of why does no one care about her? Why am I the only one that like remembers this? And through just like pain and like hardship, I like remembered that even when we're down, like don't be in the victim mindset. Like even with her terminal cancer, it's like, we're not going to be the victim of this. Like we're going to like fight this thing with everything we got. And I was like, I'm currently sitting here. I'm expecting the world to read my mind that I'm grieving about my mother. And I'm expecting them to ask these questions to me without like any type of prompt. Like that is like just waiting back, like hoping the world's going to solve my problems. And I was like, wait a second. Like I put myself in their shoes, show some, it's like, they probably they don't want to like make me sad. They don't want to like overstep. It's hard. It's taboo. It's uncomfortable for people, especially you haven't experienced it, to talk about. It's like, what if I gave them permission? So like,
how'd you do that?
So by like bringing her up and talking about her first, like showing that it was on the table, that like I want to, like I can, and I want to talk about this. And it was a game changer for me, honestly. Like in a conversation, like, oh, that reminds me of something that my mom once told me, or that reminds you of the story of my mom. I wouldn't call her Susan ever to her face. No, I would not say that. That'd be weird. It was like, this reminds me of like this thing that my mom said. And like their face, like there's immediate shock. They're like, wait, isn't your mom dead? And I'm like, yeah, no, but before she passed away, like, but she did this crazy thing. And like,
we can still talk about her. It's okay.
Oh my gosh. Like,
and you want to, it sounds like you wanted, that was part of your journey. Was making sure that you continued to talk about her, especially with your friends. Yeah,
like for me, it was like, just because she's not here anymore, like doesn't mean that she doesn't exist, right? Just because she's no longer with us, like doesn't mean I want her legacy to stop with her obituary. So like, and I'm an outward person. I'm like talk about it, post about it, like do all like like that's how I'm dealing with grief. Like I'll post stuff on social media and it's like, it's not for the sympathy. I don't care about the likes, like whatever. But like for me to share the lessons with everyone, like makes me feel better. It makes me feel good and makes me like feel like, okay, just because she passed away in 2017 doesn't mean that her legacy stopped in 2017. And I think it's just like a powerful way that I've dealt with grief and like opening it up. Like my friends know it's not off the table. Like they know that I will not break down and start crying and I will like welcome it and I will love to talk about it. And there is that moment though where I had the resentment and I'm so angry and I had to, for me, I was like, I have to get out of this, like waiting for the world to read my mind.
Sure.
And I have to give them the permission that this is not off limits for me. And then like dive into that and like share what I want to and like talk about. Like just like someone shares a story like how they had a phone call with their mom. Like I'll share a story about a phone call I had with my mom.
Right.
That's fine. Like I learned lessons too. She was a person.
Sure.
And I think that was a big game changer for me.
Yeah. Just opening it up, giving permission by telling the stories.
Yes.
And making sure that you were talking about your mom, saying my mom did this and my mom did that, and making the people around you presumably a little bit more comfortable after the first, few times.
Absolutely. And I think that focusing on all the things she gave to me and focusing on all the positive helped me get out of the like, I wish I would have. If I could go back, I would change. I would skip the job interview. I would skip practice and I would just like spend every week. Like, no, like be realistic. Like you can't go back and change the time. Like you're going to live your life and like you can't focus on all the things you wish you would have. Like I wish I would have just stayed at home right by her side for 40 hours.
It's so common though. It's so common to look back. I mean, I look back on this morning and think about all the things that I should have done this morning that I didn't do. Right. Like it's really easy to look back after something, but you've experienced something.
The opposite side of that coin is like, okay, but what about all the things you did get done?
Totally.
Like, and I found like focusing on like the positive and the impact and sharing that helps me.
Yeah.
Like I spent a long time of like, well, there's like the immediate like scare, the like, it's almost like shock is over. Like it's probably like three or 4 weeks when you're like, oh damn, I really need something. You like dial the number, like you like look up and you're like, oh, wait. And then that kind of sets in of like, she's not here anymore. And then that's when it's like, damn, I wish I would have asked that. Damn, I wish I would have done all of these things.
Sure.
And then like, so switching that mindset from like, I wish I would have to, I'm grateful that we did. Like, I am so grateful that we would have those, carry out dinners on Fridays.
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I ended up transferring home and I spent a semester going to a JUCO and like driving her to cancer treatments. And like went to a terrible I shouldn't talk about my alma mater. So the backstory is she wanted to see me graduate from college.
Right.
She never went to college and she was so proud of me and like wanted to bring me on. And when I got the news and found out that she had brain cancer and like due to some stuff, I was like, okay, I'm going home. And I ended up transferring back to a tiny school, and basically I walked into their admissions office and was like, my mom has terminal cancer, she wants to see me graduate, I have all these credits, transferring in whatever I have to do, but I want to walk across the stage in May. And they like were so grateful. They were like not grateful. They were just so
accommodating.
Awesome.
Yeah.
They were so accommodating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful to them for being accommodating. Like I took 5 classes, a lot of them. Like I took like typing, like Microsoft Office type classes. Like I was a general studies major. Like made it through, and like was going through. I got like, I got all the grades. Was still able to be a commuter student. Take my mom to all of her appointments. Unfortunately, in April, like on Easter Sunday, 2017, she passed away. And a month later was my graduation. And it's like looking back on that time that I spent with her, like driving in the car, like, man, brain cancer is crazy.
Yeah.
Like watching and experiencing that like every single day. Like, I can't imagine how she was feeling, but like seeing someone like lose cognitive ability is hard. And the way that she never quit fighting, the way that she, like found humor up to the end, like it was powerful, man. And that's like, I look back and I like think about like work or whatever I might be doing. And I'm like, I'm not battling cancer here.
Sure.
Like it's not like I'm very grateful that the problems I have are like very, very easy in terms of scale.
Right.
And it makes me like appreciate so much the like optimism and just like, hey, if we can find a joke after like brain radiation, like after a treatment, we can like go get an ice cream cone and like find laughter and happiness there. Like I can find happiness and laughter anywhere.
So I want to hit on the graduation thing real quick. You went back because the idea was that your mom wanted to see you graduate.
My mom wanted to see me graduate.
So you did that for her, right? To go back and say, hey, I will go to school locally so that I can graduate and you can see me walk across the stage. But in reality, what ends up happening is that your selflessness to do that has nothing to do with graduation. It has everything to do with spending all of this time with her.
So, like, it's powerful, man. Like, it is powerful the time that I got to spend with her and like how we got to there and like, and like again, I as a freshman in college, I am not giving up. Like, I don't think I was mature enough. I didn't see like I was like, oh, like I don't want to do this. Like I would rather stay. Like you're gonna be fine. Like you'll figure it out. And I was like, as you know, life goes on and I got mature, and like I see it now where what she instilled in me like brought me back to home, right? And going there for and like. I'm so fortunate. Yeah. Like spending the last 4 months of her life with her, like every single day, like driving to appointments or just watching Jeopardy, you know, like whatever. What, like
little moments.
I cherish that.
Yeah.
I cherish that time, and I'm so fortunate for it. And even though she didn't get to see me walk across the stage, there's a funny story actually. So after she was diagnosed with brain cancer, we're sitting in the doctor's office or like in the one of the hospital rooms or whatever, me and her, right? And a nurse comes in, like a I don't know if it was a grief counselor or a nurse or whoever, like someone that's like in charge of talking to people with terminal illness. Like, so like, what are some things you want to do before you pass away? I asked her that question. And she looks at me and she's like, I want to see my son get married. And I kid you not, this lady looks at me, she goes, oh my gosh, you're engaged. Congratulations. And I looked her straight in the face and I said, oh no, I don't have a girlfriend.
No, I don't have a girlfriend.
And like this like the purest, like the
she took it as like there was a wedding, like, an imminent wedding, like scheduled, it's on the books.
Yeah. And I just look at her like, oh no, I don't have a girlfriend. Right. And her jaw like drops and she's like, oh, so like what about like in the next like couple months? Right, and that was when we got to that. I was like looking up like, hey, dude, is there any like friends I got from high school that could like help get married with me real quick? Like we just happened to fall in love. Like no, that's when we got to like I want to see him graduate from college. Yeah, that's 2 years left. Yeah, and they do a good job. They don't outwardly say like, hey, you have months to live. Like at least I never heard that. But it was like in private conversations, they'd be like, I don't like this is the rough time frame. You know, like. We're thinking 4 to 6 months, you know, like if like that's just like what's typical. Like what can we achieve in 4 to 6 months? Sure. And that's a hard conversation to have. And that's when we got on the track at Ancilla College, go Chargers, and set everything up so I could graduate with my associate's degree. So I have 2 degrees. And it was never like, though we didn't get the final destination of that, like it was the journey there. Totally. Like, it was 100% about like being around her, spending that time together, like not having full-time job. Like I'm fortunate for that. Like I was a student, I would go to class like 2 days a week. I was virtual the other 3 days, and I just I worked a little bit, but I would like be with her and take her to every appointment. And it was just like, honestly, I look back and in the moment I'm like, this sucks. Like, this is terrible. And I look back, I'm like, I'm grateful. And I've like seen the hardships that someone battling cancer goes through. And like, again, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, but it has like opened my eyes and made me a completely different person. Yeah. Which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. It's very clear. You know, we know each other to some degree. We're getting to know each other a lot better. But it's very clear the way you described Susan, that she very much, has a legacy that's alive and well through you because of the way you approach things. When you think about that legacy and like the next things that she taught you, I'm sorry, not the next thing, the things that she taught you. When you think about what's next for you and how you display those things, is there anything that she taught you that you just really are adamant that carries you through the rest of your life that you can spread as much as you can?
Oh man, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing, right? I'll tell you, I have two things, right?
Okay.
So one is just showing up for people, like even if you don't have resources, like if you're not, we weren't wealthy, but my mom, if you called her, she was there, right? Like if I called her and needed something, she would drive across the world, like would find her way to show up for the people. And her circle was pretty tight. Like she didn't have 1,000 friends, but for the people, when you called her, when you needed her and you called her, she was there. And I think that that's something that I want to embody. I think that like being reliable and like this, like just steadfastness through good times, bad times, optimism, all that stuff. I think that I want to display that to my kids one day, right? And like be someone that my friends, my coworkers, my peers, anyone, like people can count on. Like that's just like the number one thing I think that she taught me.
Yeah. I mean, that's truly a legacy to be able to take the characteristics that you embodied and that you showed the world, and to have somebody adopt those and to continue to carry those on.
And I would charge people, while you still have the time, to like think about that. Like, what do you admire about your parents? What do you admire about your grandparents? And like actually think, it's like some people will be like, oh yeah, my grandpa was super wealthy and was a great businessman, and I admire that. And it's like, but what are the characteristics that got them there?
Right.
And like really think about that, because it's powerful. Like as a dumb high school kid, I didn't think my mom had anything to offer me. I was like, oh gosh, she didn't go to college. Like we're total opposites. And now, as it's like too late to say thank you, and I will like get down about myself about that every now and again. Of like, dude, I wish I would have been a better person.
Right.
And it's the only thing I can do is now be a better person. But like I will charge people while you have the time to think about those characteristics and tell them that. It's like, hey, I've always, like, you ask really good questions. You're a very curious person, Grandpa. Like, I appreciate that about you. And, like, reinforce that while you have time, because it can mean a lot to them. And it will, like, as you find yourself doing those traits, like, as I find myself, like, showing up for my friends and being funny or being, dependable, I think back to her and I'm like, I wish I could say thank you for putting that into me.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for her because I see it from you, and that energy is contagious. So hopefully I can take a little bit of Susan from you and maybe continue to spread a little bit. So
I love it, man.
Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It was awesome.